This morning we are continuing on our series, God's Common Sense, and what we're doing is we're walking through the book of Proverbs, not necessarily systematically, but we're taking different Proverbs and applying them to life things that we all face, life challenges we have, and looking at God's common sense instead of just ours about how God would desire for us to live our lives, all right? Today we're going to be looking at God's common sense in the area of being a great parent. Now, if you are not a current parent, meaning you don't have kids at home, that's okay, because what I always encourage you is if you are a parent or a grandparent, your kids need to know this to teach your grandkids. This is God's common sense that you can be a great parent if you would apply to things that you would hear today. Now, if you are a parent sitting here right now, or you've been a parent, you know this. Your children are the most valuable possession that you will ever have. They're the most valuable thing that you will ever receive in your life. And every parent that I've ever met, whether they are good or bad, and I've met a lot of bad ones and a lot of good ones, especially doing teen ministry, I've met a lot of them on both sides. Every parent you run into, even the ones who are drug addicts, go, I want to be a great parent. That's just a natural desire every parent has. But obviously, it's not that easy. Obviously, if being a good parent was easy, everybody would say great things about their parents. And as we know, a lot of people don't have great things to say about their parents. Because in reality, parenting is not easy. It is a very tough task that we are given. I mean, on top of all the other crazy things we deal with, if you have multiple kids, every kid's different, right? Those of you that have multiple kids. I have two, for instance, and just give you some of the differences they have. I have Gideon, who literally, and some of these things you know, but Gideon I can yell at for 20 minutes. And the kid will just sit there like, whatever, yell at me, do it. I can take Gideon and I can sit him like in the middle of the floor for 3 hours and say, sit there and you can't do anything. And they'd be like, oh, okay. And he'll sit there and he'll just think and he'll run his things in his mind and he's fine with it, okay? It's hard to punish Gideon. The only way I ever found to punish Gideon and get anything through his head was you actually have to use physical punishment and you have to spank him. That was the only thing that got through to that kid. And that one took about 4 spanks before he cared enough to have that matter either. Liberty, on the other hand, Liberty, if I even tell her she did something wrong and even raise my voice at all, literally just starts crying. And like, and you sit there like, come on, kid, are you serious? But they're just two totally different animals. Gideon, for instance, his learning style. The kid thinks, the kid questions, he thinks out everything before he does it. Liberty is literally just a hands-on, I want to go do something. Liberty doesn't want to talk about a whole lot or anything. Liberty just wants to go do stuff. Gideon wants to think everything through. They're just different that way. Gideon, if I would let him, would sit on the computer 23 hours a day playing video games and different things on the computer and just doing that. Liberty won't touch the computer, and if you give her the chance, will go outside, and she's always wanting to take a walk or play on the stones out front or whatever it is. Liberty wants to be outside. Gideon wants to be inside. The point is this, as tough as it is being a parent, you also have all of your kids being different personalities, and you have to figure out how do you parent best to each of them, and that is very tough, because what you find out is this, is that there is no one-size-fits-all parenting book that you can just pick up that tells you this works on all kids, all right? But God does, in a way, do this. He gives us a set of principles that if we would apply them to our children, would allow us to be great parents to them if we would apply these principles. And these principles apply across the board. You might just have to apply them differently with each child. Now, before we start this morning, I want to give you a warning, and I'll give you this next week as well. Just because I preach on this topic does not mean I'm excellent at all the things on this topic, okay? A lot of times people get this misunderstanding, or they look at their minister and go, the minister's perfect at all these things as he teaches them and he preaches on them on a Sunday. And I want you to know, although I am an incredible parent, I'm not perfect. Okay? So I want to be upfront about that. Yeah. But no, the point is this. I want you to know I struggle the same way you do. We have the same family struggles. We have the same issues with our kids that you do. My kids are not perfect, and my kids drive me nuts just like your kids drive you nuts, and you sit there at times going, I don't even know what to do anymore. We have the same issues. We have the same pressures in our family that you do. But at the same time, before we start into the positive things, we have to identify what our enemy is. Okay, so before we talk about how do you become a great parent, you have to understand what your enemy is. And your enemy this morning is you. Okay? The enemy of being a great parent is you as a parent. Let me explain what I mean by that. Some of us have the potential to have some really bad parenting habits. And the reason we have those is because we were raised by bad parents. So if you were raised by bad parents, there's a high likelihood that you have some really bad habits as a parent that carry on from how you were raised that you need to be aware of that will be destructive to you being a great parent for your children. Some of us have the potential to misunderstand our position as a parent. And what I mean by that is this. Some parents misunderstand that they are to be their kid's friend rather than their parent. Okay? Meaning, I want to hang out with my friend. I want to be in their social circles with my friend instead of being a parent to them and being the adult in their life. And what I want you to understand, this parent, if you struggle with this, your kid has plenty of friends. You're the only parent they ever get. So if you sacrifice being a parent to be a friend, they don't have a parent anymore. And that is very destructive to a child being raised. You are called to be their parent, not their buddy, not their friend, but to be their parent. Another thing we tend to do is we have the potential to misunderstand our time frame. This is probably something new you haven't heard a whole lot about before, is this. I think a lot of parents think when I hit junior and senior high is where I have to do my best parenting. That's where the real issues come up. That's where I'm going to be parenting my kids through stuff. I'm here to let you know this. And again, just from background and working with so many teens and all, I feel pretty confident saying this stuff. Is your most effective parenting years you will have is from birth to about 6th grade. Okay? You have a window from the time they come out till about 6th grade, and that's a generic grade in there. It could be 5th, it could be 7th, it could rotate somewhere right in there. But about 6th grade is where you have the ability to be the most effective parent you can be to your kids. Here's why. At about 6th grade, you no longer are your kid's number one influencer in their life. About 6th grade is where society, the world, friends around them, and stuff like that start to become more of an influence than you are on what's right and wrong in their life. So you have about an 11-year window where you are the number one influencer, and from that time on, it starts to shift. You know it shifts because if you've already raised teenagers and they're out of the house, you know when that transition starts to happen because you start to feel like you're losing control. Right? Those that have raised kids, have you been there? You know, you can literally feel that transition because you can start to feel, I'm no longer the top influence in this kid's life, and they're starting to buck me on a lot of things. Okay? And you can see the transition happen. And what a lot of parents do is get real frustrated. Like, if I can't keep control of this, they're going into their tough years where I was supposed to parent them, and I can't parent them anymore, and I'm not their top influence. And you're going, no, the reason is you had about the first 11 years to really parent them and be really effective with them and set them up for their junior and senior high years and for the rest of their life by the things you teach them in those first 11 years. All right? Now, the reason I tell you the potential enemy is this, is I want you for the rest of this morning, no matter what you think about parenting, you need to put it on the side right now and stop thinking about it and just listen to God's common sense on this, okay? God gives us some principles, and whether you like them or not, it's the principles God gives, and I trust the Creator more than I would trust yourself or your parents or whatever else. You trust God's wisdom on this stuff. You trust His common sense on these things, and I guarantee you it will turn out better than your common sense. Okay? So here is God's common sense on being a great parent. Some of the key things you got to have as a parent. The first thing is this. You need to teach them wisdom. Okay? First thing you have to do is you got to teach your kids wisdom. Listen to Proverbs 6:22 and 22:6. Here's what they say. When you walk, this is in like reference of a kid thinking about his parents. When you walk, their counsel will lead you. When you sleep, they will protect you. When you wake up, they will advise you. Okay? That is wisdom. That's not just right and wrong, teaching your kid black and whites. That's teaching your kids how to think. That the things you've taught them will advise them. It will lead them. Not just tell them black, white, right, wrong. It will advise them. It will grant them wisdom. In Proverbs 22, it says this, direct, not order, direct your children onto the right path, and when they're older, they will not leave it. Okay? Your first responsibility as a parent, teach your kids wisdom. Now, the obvious question is going to be this: how? How do I teach a kid wisdom? Let me give you some suggestions how you teach kids wisdom. The first one is my big pet peeve. This is my personal thing, and we'll all get to see in about the next 6 to 7 years if I was right on this one or wrong. I think I'm pretty right on it because I've tried it with other people's kids, and it's turned out well. Now I'm just trying it on my own, and it's like a human experience or experiment. So if Gideon turns out to be a total wreck in the next 6 years, everything I say through the rest of the sermon other than the main points, just scrap it, okay? Just so you know, but you won't know for another 6 or 8 years. So those of you that have kids around my age, you're going to mess them up right along with me. But we won't know that that experiment worked or failed till then. Just kidding. I know this stuff works. Here's how you teach wisdom. 1, proactively program your children. What I mean by that is you have to be the one that tells your children how the world works, what happens in the world before the world does. Here's the hardest thing as a parent. If you let the world teach your kids, after you find out the world's taught them, trying to deprogram what the world's taught them and then reprogram them is a lot more hard than just programming them right the first way, right? You're adding 2 other major tasks to your list of things you have to do. As a parent, program them proactively, meaning, I told you this a few weeks ago, we have no real youngins in here. When I just informed Gideon, none of his friends are in here. Okay. When I talked to Gideon about the birds and the bees and sexuality and all, okay, I've been listening literally for 3 years that I quiz him on what he knows about that word sex. And when it shifted this year from, well, it means boys and girls, like boys are boys like males and girls are girls like females. When it shifted this year and he said, when I was in the car with him, and he said, well, it has something to do with kissing or something. And I went, guess what? We're having a talk tonight. Okay? Let me tell you why. I know he hasn't been corrupted by the world yet, but he's starting to hear something new. And you know he's starting to enter in that realm where he's going to be in a conversation where other kids start talking about things he's never heard before. So my thing is I will proactively program him, which is I'm going to sit him down before the world ever does, and I'm going to tell him, Gideon, here's what sex is. Here's how it all works. Here's the details. Here's how it's misused in the world. Here's how God desires for it to be used. And we are Christians. We are here to live godly lives and obey God and honor him with our lives and represent Jesus well. And that's what we're here for. So here's what's going to happen. And the second thing I did is there's going to be scenarios, son, in the future where you're going to be sitting in a group of kids and you're going to hear all these other vulgar ways and you're going to hear the world's way, and you are there to represent God. Not to berate people, not do anything, but you are to go, hey, you know what? I already know about that stuff, and you know what? I probably know more than you. He's not going to be a kid that goes, I don't know anything. I probably know more than you, so nothing you're saying, and I can correct things that you're saying is wrong. I know more than you, and I know this is what God would want from us, okay? You have to proactively program your children before they face the things they're going to face in this world, because the last thing you want them to do is just have to react to everything they face, because when you react to things you face, it doesn't end well most of the time. You think back to your life, when you just react to situations without ever thinking about it, do you usually make good choices? Not too often. Maybe a 50-50 roll of the dice. 50-50, I don't want to give my kids that odds. I want to give them better odds than that. So if you're going to teach them wisdom, you have to make sure that you take time to teach them how to think instead of just following your rules. How to just walk through things in their mind so they know when they face these things, they know this is how I'm going to respond because I've already thought about it. Another thing about teaching wisdom, create an environment of question asking. Get your kids to ask you questions constantly. And the way you do that is anytime they ask you a question, you be the one that gives them an answer. And if you don't know the answer, you say, I'm going to go research it and I will get you the answer. Let me tell you why. It allows you to be a main influencer in their life and you become their answer person. And that's what you want as a parent, is it not? If they have questions, you want them coming to you. What we tend to do when they're younger is just do it because I told you to do it. Well, why does this happen? Why does that happen? Don't worry about it. Just do what I told you to do or just believe what I told you to say. And what you're doing is you're teaching them, Mom and Dad won't give me the answer. So eventually when they get older, what will they do? They will look for someone else to get the answers. This week in my car, I had to learn about the War of 1812. Why? My son asked me every single question there is. So he was like, do you know about the War of 1812? I'm like, Not a whole lot. And I'm like, I'll find answers for you. And he's like, good, because I want to know about the War of 1812. So I have to go research the War of 1812. So then I'm filling him in. Then he goes, gets a library book to see if I'm right, and figure all that out. That's how it works with Gideon. But the other thing we have is, since I've had the conversation about sex with Gideon, we have had probably 8 weeks of very uncomfortable questions from time to time. Because we've told him, talk to us. Any question you have, anything else that comes up, talk to us. So he talks to us. And some of them are like, I don't really feel comfortable talking about that one with you right now, son, because you're our son, okay? Things like, so did you join twice because you have 2 kids? Well, 3 because you lost it. Did you just 3? And let's not talk about that right now, son. We'll talk about that when you get older, okay? But we have become his question guy, and he knows if he comes to mom and dad, we will get him answers. We never just turn it down. We never say we don't have time to answer your questions or we won't go get the answers. So the hope is we are always there when he doesn't understand something. Instead of going to a friend to find out the answer, he comes to mom and dad, and we give him the correct answer. Now, he could have said, tell me about the War of 1812, and I could have bluffed him. But if he went and found something different later on, he would have started to second guess in his mind, you know what? They don't really know what they're talking about, so why would I trust them? So if you don't know the answer, you tell them, I don't know the answer, and I'll go get the answer for you, okay? That's how you teach wisdom. You got to have a constant conversation with your kid. You have to become the person who has the answers. You have to prepare them for things they haven't faced yet that they're going to face, and teach them, here's how you handle it. Here's what God wants. Here's what the world's going to say, and here's what God wants. So you know all the information. You know what God would desire for your life. That's how you teach wisdom. The second thing, you have to hold your kids accountable. This is key. You have to be the person that holds your kid accountable. Let me read you 4 Proverbs. 13:24. Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. This is strong language, okay? Those who spare the rod of discipline hate their children. Those who love their children care enough to discipline them. Proverbs 19, discipline your children while there is hope. Otherwise, you will ruin their lives. Let me tell you how I interpret that one. I just told you have a window from about 0 to 11 or 12, wherever, or 10, to be the one that sets the tone for the rest of their life. This proverb says, discipline your children while there is still hope. I, working in the teen field for so many years, saw tons of parents that would come into my office that had like a 13, 14, 15, 16-year-old who is totally out of control, and they're coming in my office and they would go, tell us what to do. Our counselors at Shadow Mountain, you face this stuff all the time, right? And tell us what to do. How do we fix the kid? And my hardest conversations with them was this. You know what? They're 13, 14, 15. You're not going to be the one that can fix it now because you didn't do your job on the front side. You're just not going to be that person. I can give you some things to help try to start that process rolling back, but you're not going to be that main influencer. You got to pray that God sends someone else there. Pray for a good girl or something that comes into your life, or a good guy who will get them to do whatever they want them to do because they like them, okay? But you need to pray for someone else that God will bring into your life to be the one to affect them, because you already blew your opportunity. That time has passed. That time is gone. Doesn't mean you still can't do some positive things. Doesn't mean you can't start turning around some. But to think you're going to be the one that fixes all that 13 when you've done nothing for 13 years, and all of a sudden you're just going to change everything and fix it, not real likely. Okay, that's not really going to happen. That's why you send them to Shadow Mountain and you have counselors who aren't their parents work with the kids to teach them about these things. Okay? You need to be the one that disciplines them while they have hope. Proverbs 29, it says, to disciple a child produces wisdom, but a mother is disgraced by an undisciplined child. How many of you seen an undisciplined child and you looked at their mom and went, what is wrong with you? That's this proverb. Now, this is the most interesting proverb. Don't read this one yet, because I know you're trying to. The 23rd one. This is, again, wisdom of King Solomon, a very rich man, which means he probably had a bunch of really rich people who sat around and didn't have anything better to do during their day except think about things. That didn't really matter. But what's interesting is this one addresses our culture today, some 3,500 years later. Here's this one. It says, don't fail to discipline your children. The rod of punishment, what? Won't kill them. Physical punishment's not going to kill your child if done the right way. Physical discipline may well save them from death. Okay? We live in a culture that goes, you can't spank your children. It's going to cause irreversible damage to them and all. Proverbs dealt with the same thing. Solomon heard the same thing, and he went, you know what? It's not going to kill them. Okay? You can physically punish your kid, and sometimes it might save them from death. It's okay. Now, I'm going to give you some guidelines of that, though, because there is things called abuse, because people don't know how to punish their children and hold them accountable. Let me tell you how you do it. 1, draw appropriate lines. You need to draw appropriate lines of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable within your family. When I say appropriate, I use that word intentionally. You can't expect your kid who's 6 years old to be an adult. So you don't make rules that require them to be an adult. They're 6 years old. Make rules that are, make rules there that are appropriate for their age level of things that are acceptable and unacceptable. And you need to draw the line and make sure they understand what those things are. You can't just make them up on the fly. They need to know these things are acceptable or not. Second thing you do is you need to refuse not to waver when they break the lines. When they cross the lines, you don't waver. This is one of the things my parents did well, which is there was no negotiating. There was no talking yourself out of the trouble. If you chose to walk across the line that you knew the line of the family was, you were going to get the punishment. Okay? I learned accountability as a kid, which is if I'm going to cross this line, I know what's coming, and is it worth it to me? That's basically what I had to think. So all the times I crossed the line, which was all the time, I knew I was still going to get punished. So even though I did it 600 times, I knew my mom over there was going to punish me, and out was coming the paddle or whatever else was going to happen, or my Nintendo was gone, or my TV was gone, and things just vanished from my room magically all the time. And I never owned anything I ever bought. It was just gone. And the thing was, is you cross the line, these are the punishments. So you can't waver. What happens is this. Parents, when you waver, you put your kids in a situation they don't know what to expect. There's no stability in their life. And things just waver constantly. And the thing is, they will learn in the world real quick. Things don't just waver all over the place. There's immediate consequences for things. You do this, there's an immediate consequence. You need to teach them as young children accountability in their actions. The last thing is this. When they cross the line and you punish them, you have to punish them without anger. Okay? This is where abuse steps in. Is a lot of people punish their children while they're angry. And they go across the line and they hurt their children and they abuse their children because they are punishing while they are still angry. What I encourage you to do is this. When your kid crosses a line and you have to punish them, before you punish them, whether that is a spanking or taking away, whatever it is, you need to separate yourself from them, go cool down so you can think, then go back and just do whatever punishments you are. So that way, even if you are spanking, which I have experience in doing, when I'm spanking, I'm not spanking because I'm angry at my kid. I'm spanking going, this is not something I want to do, but it's something that has to be done because you know the punishment. So I'm spanking out of that. If I'm spanking when I'm angry, there's a possibility I go into the place that I'm spanking hard because I'm angry. And when your emotions are up and when you're angry, you do stupid things. So parents, before you apply punishment, before you practice spanking or whatever, you need to make sure you are calm and you are thinking clearly. Then you apply the punishment. Otherwise, you will cross the line, and more likely than not, you will abuse your child. Just letting you know. You will, if you use a paddle, if you use anything like that, I just don't. I just have a hard time with that. I can't even shoot Bambi, even though people in my small group feed it to me. I'm just not that type of guy. I can spank. I can't use something, even though I had a paddle used on me. But if you're using something to just do punishment, if you're doing it angry, I can almost guarantee you will cross the line into abuse from time to time. And the last thing you want to do is actively abuse your children. Okay? Nobody wants to be that person. That's what you will get into. So your best way to handle that, you cool down, separate from the child for a while, cool down until you're calm. Then you go back and you do whatever punishment that is deemed necessary for whatever line was crossed. Does that make sense? Okay? So, but we are to hold our children accountable. The third thing that will make you a great parent is this. You have to teach your kids by example. In Proverbs 27, it says this, the godly walk with integrity. Blessed are their children who follow them. Okay? You need to understand, if you aren't living what you're teaching, you're actually undermining yourself. You are an enemy of yourself. So you cannot run around teaching your kids one thing and then you don't live it out in your life. or you can just pretty much guarantee everything else you have to say doesn't mean jack to your children. They don't care. Your kids will learn 10 times more from your example than they ever will from the things you say. So if you are not walking the talk, your kids pick up on it real quick, and it doesn't matter what you say, they will follow your actions. And here's the worst part. If you say one thing and act out in another way, they see you as a hypocrite, and you will have no influence in their life at all. And what typically happens is those are the kids that will just rebel and do stupid stuff just to punish the parent. Just because they see them as a hypocrite, and they will go back and go, the only way I can hurt you now, like you've hurted me by just telling me one thing and doing it different and just making me feel small and without any boundaries or knowing anything that's stable, the only way I can hurt you is I will do things I know you don't like and things that will set you off, and I will go instinctively and intentionally rebel against you just to hurt you. And you will see that time and time again working with teenagers. You have to set the example. Your kids, if you tell your kids you're supposed to love your neighbor and love God, then they better see that in your life. So when you're out in the store, the grocery store, or wherever else, they see you respecting people and loving people. And when you get in the car, you're not talking and bad-mouthing people in the car when you're telling them I'm supposed to love people. You can't tell your kids it's not good for you to talk bad about people and gossip about people, and then when you're in a car, all you do is gossip and bad-mouth people with the family. Okay? What you say means nothing to them at that point. All you are is a hypocrite to them. And they will learn that real quick, and you will never be their answer person. You will just be the person they learn to ignore and just go, it's a hypocrite. Okay? You have to lead by example. The fourth thing that will make you a great parent, and the final thing is this: teach your kids self-worth. This is the thing we don't hear a whole lot about. Teach your kids self-worth. Let me tell you why. You have to teach your kids to find self-worth and who they are and who they are before God. That way they're never searching it out from someone else to give them that self-worth. When they don't have it themselves, what they will do is they will look for another guy or another girl or someone else in their life that will make them feel good about themselves, and they will do whatever it takes to get that feeling. You as a parent need to teach them self-worth so they already have it, so they're not having to get it from someone else where they make stupid decisions because they know who they are and they're okay with who they are. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, it says this. This isn't a proverb, but I had to go with Thessalonians. It says, and you know, this is Paul writing. He says, and you know that we treated you as a father treats his own children. And then he says, here's what we did as a good father should. He says, we pleaded with you, we encouraged you, and we urged you to live lives in a way that God would consider worthy. All right? Let me tell you how you teach your kids self-worth. First thing that you can really do that's beneficial is this: let your kids know that you know that God has great things in store for their life. You have to give them a kingdom purpose and let them know that even if they don't know, you know that God has something great in store for their lives and he wants to use them. You need to give them that purpose. One of the things I did with my children, I'm different. You don't have to do what I do. One of the things, my names are very specific to my children. Some of you know this. The names I give them, Gideon, he hears this all the time. He is named Gideon for this purpose. It doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter what family you come from. It doesn't matter how low we are, how high we are. If you follow God, God can do incredible things with your life. And Gideon knows that. Liberty, I've given the name Liberty because she is to bring liberty to people who are living in the darkness for the rest of her life. And she will be that beacon. She will be that light of the world that will bring liberty to people who are trapped in the darkness. That's why she's called Liberty. My names that I give my kids are a constant reminder that I can inform them God has great plans for your life, and God can do incredible things through you. The second thing you do here to create self-worth, you have to make sure that you are verbally encouraging your children. Okay? You need to use words in appropriate situations where you tell your kids you're proud of them. Okay? Very few people outside of parents ever get the opportunity to tell a kid they're proud of them. You as a parent, don't overuse it. When it's appropriate, let your kids know you're proud of the decision they did or the thing that they accomplished over here. Use the word specifically, I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you did. You need to use words like, I love you. And you need to make sure that you tell them on a regular basis, I love you. Okay? You need to do things, and when they do a great job, and some say, you did a great job on that. That was really good. You're really talented in that. You did a great job. You need to verbally encourage your kids It is essential to their growth and their self-worth. Let me give you how. So I was talking to someone in this church this week that was talking about one of their parents. And one of the things they said to me is, no matter what I did, I could never please them. They never told me they was proud of me, never did anything good, they loved me, never heard anything positive from them. And you could tell, even though it's someone that's now grown, it's something that still affects them constantly because they never receive that self-worth from their parents, okay? You as a parent play a critical role in creating the self-worth of your children, especially from the age of 0 to 11 or 12. Say, I'm proud of you. Say you did a good job. Tell them you love them on a regular basis so they hear that from your mouth. Guys, we struggle with this one more than the ladies do. A lot of guys, we struggle with the words, I love you. We struggle with the word proud. Why? Because instead of being a joking moment or like a manly moment, it's actually like a sensitive, like I'm letting my guard down moment. And it doesn't come natural to us. Me, a manly's man. I mean, I'm as manly as I get. It doesn't come, but even in my case, it doesn't come natural to me. When I tell my son and my daughter I'm proud of them, it's a mental exercise in my head that like there's like some walls you have to climb over to feel comfortable saying it. That's the only way I can say it. I don't mind saying it. It's just not normal verbiage that you use in a typical conversation in everyday life. And you have to crawl over some things in your head to get those words out. But you know how beneficial it is to them, so you find a way to do it. Tell them that you love them every night before they go to bed. Last thing is this: you must continually urge your kids to honor God. They need to be taught from a young age constantly. Your expectation is not that they honor your family name or even you. They're here to honor God. So everything you do, you're here to honor God. That's what you're looking to do, okay? If you would implement these principles at an early age with your children, you will eventually enjoy two great benefits. And here they are in Proverbs 23. It says, the father of godly children has cause for joy. The first benefit you would have is as a parent, you'd have joy at your kids. You'd be able to look at them and have joy instead of looking at them going, man, I just struggle with it. You would find joy in them. The second thing is this: what pleasure to have children who are wise. The reason you would find joy in them is they would be wise. And you could look at them, they make wise decisions. Does that mean you have kids that are not kids that are a little crazy from time? Yes. You're going to have some kids that are bigger struggle than others. But you put the seed in there to sprout later on in their lives, and you will be proud of what they become, even though you have some struggles. Your children are the most precious possession you will ever have in your entire life. Take the time and effort to be great parents to them. And you will be blessed at what they become. And at the same time, they will be blessed for having parents like you.